Well, just days ago, we gave you details of the NIA's charge sheet against Zakir Naik, and now we've come to learn that the Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister, in a statement, has said that the Indian government has not requested any help with regards to Zakir Naik. He said that there's been no official request so far from Indian agencies or the government, and he has promised, however, that the government will take action against Zakir if there's any proof of his involvement in terror activities. But really, the question at this point is, with that elaborate charge sheet that's been filed with some very serious charges coming to light, why haven't government agencies already cracked the whip and approached Malaysian authorities is the question. Joining us on this broadcast now is Shavan Sen, who's been tracking the story very, very closely for us. Shavan, good morning. First of all, give us a sense of what your sources are telling you. Why are government agencies really dragging their feet as far as this particular issue is concerned? Zakir Naik is someone who's been charge sheeted just a few days ago. We saw the kind of grave charges that have been slapped against him. Why hasn't the Malaysian government been approached yet?
Well, Akshita, there certainly appears to be some amount of confusion with regards to this particular statement now really coming in from Malaysia, because given the fact that India has always maintained that they have been in touch with their counterparts, be it in Malaysia or for that matter even in other countries where Zakir Naik we've presumed to have travelled. So as far as Indian authorities are concerned, remember this particular charge sheet which is just filed last week, we are given to understand that these charges essentially something that they are also going to share with their counterparts in Malaysia, given the fact that this would be perhaps a way to explain it before the Malaysian authorities that look here, as far as Zakir Naik is concerned, he is a threat to national security. And it certainly doesn't come across as a surprise, because actually even Republic TV did break this particular information that activists, roughly about 17 activists in Malaysia, they have approached the Kuala Lumpur High Court, and they have filed a petition seeking revocation of the permanent residency of Zakir Naik.
Shavan, request you to stay on with us. Joining us on this broadcast is also Mr. Ujjwal Nikam. Mr. Nikam, we've seen some very strong charges being framed against Zakir Naik. We, of course, have the details of the NIA charge sheet as well. But now, in a statement that's been released by the Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister, Malaysian government has confirmed that there's been no outreach per se from the Indian government, that government agencies haven't gotten in touch with them with regards to Zakir Naik. What do you feel is the reason for this delay?
Exactly, I don't know as to whether really the government of India has sent such type of requests. But so far as I know the procedure about the issuing a summons to a criminal fugitive who is staying outside India, and that is to be served through diplomatic channel, that is means Interpol notice and etc. Now, the Mumbai court has already issued the non-bailable warrant, and I hope and anticipate the government of India must have handed over that warrant to the Interpol for execution of that warrant, and that warrant can be served through the Malaysian police. And it must be in the transit also. And therefore, I have a little doubt whether the Deputy Prime Minister of the Malaysian government is exactly aware of the said procedure or not. And secondly, so far as the assurance given by the Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister that they will tender all assistance, this is a good step they have taken. Now let us see what happens further.
With some amount of, given the fact that India has always been maintaining that they have been in touch with not just Malaysia but also other countries where we're given to understand that Zakir Naik has essentially travelled. Now that this particular charge sheet has been filed, what are the options essentially available before the Indian agencies?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Nikam, this question is for you.
Yes. Now the option, that is the first option, is that the non-bailable warrant will be handed over to the Interpol. That is, Interpol means of Malaysian police. Some section of the Malaysian police is designated as an Interpol of that particular country according to the Interpol rules and regulations. So now the Interpol will issue the warrant, and Malaysian government will require to honor that warrant, and the Malaysian government, after his arrest, the matter will be proceeded like Vijay Mallya also. But we don't have the extradition treaty with the Malaysian government, that is so far as my knowledge goes. And then one has to examine. But since the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysian government has assured that he will be deported back, then that will be after examining the evidence against him, and that will be a good step that will be taken by the Malaysian government.
Mr. Nikam, there's also another development in Malaysia itself, with 17 human rights activists actually knocking on the doors of the Kuala Lumpur High Court seeking revocation of Zakir Naik's permanent residency. Do you think, with the court really now stepping in, would that mean there's more trouble for Zakir Naik? Because remember, here in India also, his passport has been revoked. So clearly there is some amount of pressure that is being built.
Yes, indeed. The pressure, no doubt, is being built upon Mr. Zakir Hussain, but Zakir Naik. But at the same time, one will require to examine whether is there any evidence against the Zakir Naik, and therefore the Indian investigating agency will require to satisfy the Malaysian party that a prima facie there is an evidence against him.
Mr. Nikam,
yes,
Mr. Nikam, the fact is that as far as this entire development is concerned, it also sends mixed signals that perhaps there is some problem with the government putting across their entire version. They thought that Zakir Naik, at the end of the day, is a threat to national security. Do you think, is there anything else that the government of the day could do to build more international pressure?
See, ultimately, international pressure that will have a little weightage, frankly speaking, because, you see, ultimately, will require to convince the Malaysian government as to how Zakir Naik has committed an offense in India, as well as in the Bangladesh authorities will also require to convince that prima facie how he is indulging and being in the terrorist activities.